Now, it's normal to feel some anxiety in social situations from time to time. For example, going on a date, attending a job interview, or giving a presentation may cause that feeling of having butterflies in your stomach. Most of us want to make a good impression and be liked. But in social anxiety disorder, also called social phobia, everyday interactions cause significant anxiety. Today, I'm going to clear up what is exactly social anxiety. Why is social anxiety a problem? What are some of the signs or symptoms so you know if you do have social anxiety? What causes it? And can social anxiety disorder be treated? So let me get right into it. First of all, I want to define what is social anxiety. Well, individuals with social anxiety, they worry a great deal about doing something embarrassing, and they fear being scrutinized or judged negatively by others. They tend to be very self-conscious and constantly feel on stage. Some examples of their thinking will be, I'll say something stupid, I'll look anxious, I'll have nothing interesting to say, people won't like me, classmates will think I'm boring, colleagues will think I'm weird. Now, overall, their feelings will be anxiety, but it'll also be fear, nervousness, embarrassment, and shame. Now, they'll also have certain body reactions, such as sweating, blushing, trembling, shaking, racing heart, upset stomach, nausea, dizziness, lightheadedness, choking sensations, and dry mouth. From a behavioral standpoint, they avoid those social situations, like skipping the party, not going to a meeting or class, or saying no to social plans with friends. They actually also include certain actions to try to feel safer and less anxious in social situations. Example, saying very little, avoiding eye contact, rehearsing what they say before they say it, not expressing their opinion, using alcohol and drugs. Now, while some people with social anxiety fear lots of different situations, such as meeting new people, going to parties, during conversations, being the center of attention, ordering food in a restaurant, etc., there are other people who are only anxious in very specific situations, like public speaking. So why is social anxiety such a problem? Well, this fear and anxiety lead to avoidance that can disrupt your life. It can affect your relationships, daily routines, work, school, other activities. Let's say even just looking at work, missing it, having trouble participating in meetings or classes, poor performance at work or school, not pursuing certain school programs or jobs or careers, difficulty talking to bosses and coworkers or teachers or other students. It can also affect your relationships and friendships, such as difficulty making or even keeping friends, trouble dating, and difficulties being assertive and opening up to people. Also, recreational activities and hobbies. They avoid trying new activities or joining things like going to a gym, joining a running club, taking an art class, and even your day-to-day activities like difficulty completing just regular things like grocery shopping, ordering food, eating at a restaurant, taking or making phone calls, asking for help, and using public transit or public washrooms is very anxiety provoking. This kind of disorder can cause a lot of low self-esteem, people having a lot of difficulties being assertive, have a lot of negative self-talk, poor social skills, they're hypersensitive to any type of criticism, difficulty with any kind of relationships, drinking too much alcohol, sometimes suicide or suicide attempts. So what are some signs or symptoms if you have social anxiety? Well, it's this worry about embarrassing or humiliating yourself. It's this intense fear of interacting or talking with new people, fear that others will notice that you look anxious, fear of physical symptoms that may cause you embarrassment like blushing, sweating, trembling, or having a shaky voice, avoiding doing things or speaking to people out of fear of embarrassment, or any kind of situations where you might be the center of attention, or anticipation of a feared activity or event. Oftentimes there's this intense fear or anxiety during social situations because there's this analysis of your performance and identification of your flaws in your interactions after a social situation. And it's usually thinking of that worst possible scenario in those situations. So again, some physical symptoms will be the blushing, that fast heartbeat, trembling, sweating, nausea, trouble catching your breath. Sometimes you have muscle tension, feeling that your mind has even gone blank. Now, there's a lot of common experiences that may be hard to endure when you have social anxiety disorder, such as attending parties or social gatherings, going to work or school, even starting conversations, dating, using a public restroom, making eye contact, entering a room in which people are already seated, even returning items to a store, eating in front of others. There's a lot of these types of examples, but these symptoms can change over time. Now, they may flare up if you're facing a lot of changes, stress, or demands in your life. Although avoiding situations that might produce anxiety may make you feel better in the short term, your anxiety is likely going to continue over the long term and even get worse if you don't get treatment. So what causes social anxiety? Research suggests that both genetics and environment can play a role in the development of social anxiety problems. Now, social anxiety does tend to run in families, and that means if someone in your family has an anxiety problem, you may be more likely to develop one. There's also an association between social anxiety disorder, and parents who either model anxious behavior in social situations or are more controlling or overprotective of their children. Another situation is basically various unpleasant or embarrassing life events or experiences like being teased or bullied. Now, this can develop slowly over time, often starting in elementary school or early adolescence, or after a particularly embarrassing or stressful event. So, can social anxiety be treated? Well, the good news is that it is treatable. And cognitive behavioral therapy, otherwise known as CBT, is the non-medical gold standard for social anxiety disorder. Because people with social anxiety tend to overestimate the threat of the social situation and they underestimate their ability to cope with them. CBT teaches cognitive techniques like identifying and challenging those unhelpful thoughts or beliefs to help people feel less anxious and engage in social situations more. Now, because people with social anxiety tend to avoid those feared situations or people, again, avoidance works well in the short term. Like anxiety temporarily goes down by skipping a party, but it can cause problems in the long run because you miss out on meeting new friends. And then you're actually just reinforcing that belief that the situation is dangerous and that you can't cope, and that's not necessarily the case. Now, a CBT therapist will help you gradually face your excessive fears. This process of exposure helps reduce anxiety by teaching people, through experience, that situations are safer than they think and they can manage them. Now, a typical course of treatment of CBT is anywhere between 12 to 21-hour sessions. I'm going to give you some examples of some CBT strategies you can try on your own or work with your therapist with. First off, identify those negative thoughts, such as, I'll embarrass myself or people are judging me. Be aware of what they are. Then there's something called cognitive restructuring. Analyze those negative thoughts and challenge them with evidence. Ask yourself if these thoughts are based on facts or if they're distorted perception or based on your insecurities. Reframe this catastrophic thinking, those worst case scenarios, by replacing them with more realistic ones. So as an example, instead of thinking it will be a disaster if I stutter during my presentation, remind yourself that people are generally understanding of imperfections. Another technique is mindfulness and grounding techniques. Now, you can practice mindfulness to stay present in social situations. Focus on your breath or your surroundings rather than getting lost in anxious thoughts about the future or the past. Use grounding techniques like touching or holding onto an object to help you feel more connected to the present moment. There's also that, like I said, that exposure, but we'll couple it with desensitization. So the exposure is working with someone that you trust, like your therapist, to create a hierarchy of anxiety-provoking situations. Start with something that's less anxiety-provoking and work your way up. Then you actively engage in these exposure exercises, allowing yourself to confront your fears and anxieties in a controlled and systematic manner. Experiment with new behaviors and actions in social situations to challenge your anxious beliefs. So, as an example, intentionally engage in conversation or speak up in a group setting to see that your feared outcome may not come true. And it never hurts to develop coping strategies, such as deep breathing exercises, positive self-talk, mindfulness like I was just talking about, and various kinds of relaxation techniques. Role-playing is also a great strategy. So you can practice these social situations with a therapist or trusted friend through role-playing exercises that can help you build confidence and improve your social skills. Also, don't forget self-compassion. I want you to cultivate self-compassion by treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer to a friend facing similar challenges. Acknowledge that it's okay to make mistakes or feel anxious at times. Now, there are some other strategies that you can employ, such as joining a support group. Connecting with others who have social anxiety can provide a sense of community and reduce feelings of isolation. And these groups can also offer you valuable tips and coping strategies. Another strategy is really lifestyle changes. Try to maintain that healthy lifestyle by getting regular exercise, eating well, and getting enough sleep. Another strategy is setting realistic goals. So avoid setting those unrealistic expectations for yourself in social situations. Focus on achievable goals and celebrate your successes no matter how small they seem. Now, this is important. Avoid self-medication. In other words, avoid using alcohol or recreational drugs to cope with social anxiety, as they can only exacerbate symptoms and lead to other problems. Another strategy is building that support system. When you share your struggles with trusted friends and family members, they can provide you with emotional support and understanding. Now, if you got value out of today's episode, I'd really appreciate it if you like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss any of my future videos of free strategies. I also have another video I want you to watch. It's called How to Address Sexual Performance Anxiety. If you have questions or suggestions for future videos, please comment below. Until next time, I'm the Iron Therapist, Lesley Timbol, reminding you to keep your mental game on.